Hey everyone, Tony D with another video, another hot take. This one's on UBI, and little Joan has joined me. Hello, little Joan. Oh, you're so sweet. You're giving me a kiss. So UBI, I'm arguing with a Yang supporter on Reddit about UBI, and it's tough to do. You know, I like to get into these discussions on Reddit, but ultimately they're sort of pointless. But, you know, the thing is, UBI, Universal Basic Income. So Yang wants to give everybody $1,000 a month to make sure they have enough money to live, which sounds on its surface like a great idea. Oh, let's give people money so they can live. Great. The problem with it is, well, first, there's the economics of it. There are approximately 330 million adults in the United States. I assume the UBI would just go to the adults and not the children. So if you do the math, at $1,000 a month, the total would be about $4 trillion a year would be the cost of giving everyone in the United States $1,000 a month. Okay. So how do you get that money? Well, my arguer says, oh, it's from the peace dividend. So I assume he means that Yang is just going to pull all the troops back home, which would be a great thing. As a libertarian, I would totally support that portion of his plan. You know, pulling all the troops home and closing all the military bases across the world would save billions and billions and billions of dollars. But it wouldn't save enough, because you have to understand the entire Pentagon budget is only about 800 billion at this point. You know, maybe if you added like the DEA, the TSA, and Black Ops, the CIA, and a few other things, you might get to $1 trillion. That's still not $4 trillion. So you're talking that, yeah, you've still got $3 trillion to go to cover in order to cover this money. You know, the biggest unfunded liability in America is Social Security. It's humongous. We have an aging population and not enough people making money to support Social Security. Not unless you raise the amount of money you're taxing people to pour into Social Security, or if you give the people who are supposed to get Social Security less. Now, one thing you could do is you could maybe not give Social Security to the people who don't need it. But then, of course, you'd have to define, well, who is the people who don't need it? So if you make $50,000 a year, do you not need Social Security? Well, you might not if you live in, I don't know, Western Pennsylvania. But if you lived in San Francisco, you might need that money. That also brings up another point, which I hadn't even gotten into. Unfortunately, the person I'm arguing with seems very naive and well-meaning. I don't mean to insult them, but they just don't seem to think that they seem to think this is such a panacea and it would just do so much good. You know, any minor drawbacks would be superfluous. But you can see anyone over the age of, I'd say, 30 could see all the problems of just giving people money. When you just give a 20-year-old $1,000 a month, what incentive does that 20-year-old have to go out and get a job? I mean, you could say, well, your life, and this was kind of what the poster was saying, well, your life's not going to be that great on $1,000 a month. If you're 20, that's about what you're going to make at a job. I mean, I know a guy, he's 22, he's working a job, pays him about $1,200 a month, and then he's got a second job. I think he makes an extra, I don't know, $100 a week. So maybe he's pulling down together $1,400 a month. He's living with his grandparents. So you give him $1,000 a month, he doesn't really need to work those shitty jobs. He doesn't need to work them. Why? For an extra $400, he could do whatever he wants. Now, some people, I think, are just going to sit around, get stoned, and play video games all day. I think a lot of people would do that. I, for one, would definitely sit around. I wouldn't get stoned, but I'd certainly want to sit around and play video games all day. If I had all my expenses covered, I would just have fun all day. I would play video games. I would write. I would do whatever the hell I wanted. And that's what a lot of people will do if you give them $1,000 a month, because it's not that they don't want more money. It's just that they realize that if they just make a few adjustments, if they could figure out a way to, get a cheap place. If you get a place, let's say you find a place. I know a guy who found a place for $895 a month. It wasn't a great apartment, he said, but it was an apartment. That would leave him $105 a month for food. Not totally unreasonable. You could make that work. I've made very little food money work. So $105 a month. At that point, you really only need very little money on top of that. So if you could get an apartment that's just slightly cheaper. I mean, there are places in this country. You could find a place for $600 and it'll be okay. So if you can find a place for $600, you got enough money for food. Maybe you got just enough money for your Xbox. You're set. You could live your entire life just playing video games, hanging out. Sounds great to me. It sounds like an awesome life. This guy seems to believe, no, people will better themselves. They'll pay their bills. No, they won't. People have money now and they don't pay their bills sometimes. There are plenty of people in this world who they make horrible decisions, or they just don't care. I've known people with tons of money. They don't pay their bills. They don't pay them. They don't pay their taxes. Yeah, I've known people who've bragged about not paying their taxes. And, getting another $1,000, to them, that's just funny money. Basically, when everybody gets $1,000 a month, that $1,000 a month becomes worthless. Here's one of the ways. Again, it comes back to apartments. Let's say you have an apartment for $800 a month and you're renting it. Maybe it's a room in your house. Okay? $800 a month. The person needs some kind of job. Maybe they're a student. Maybe it depends on your situation, but $800 around this area would be like student level apartment. It would be cheaper than a full-fledged apartment. Maybe you'd have a shared kitchen, something like that. So, and then you'd spend the other $200 of food. The problem is that once you give everybody $1,000 a month, that apartment is now in the price range of drug addicts, homeless people, the mentally ill, anybody. So you can't discriminate against someone when they want to rent a place from you. So what you'd be forced to do is raise the price to keep the riffraff out. So you don't get a homeless guy who's crazy. So you don't get a drug addict who's also crazy. You just wouldn't want those people in your building where you live. And it's very hard once someone gets into your place, if they're renting, to get them out. So that would force landlords who also want to make money, they'll just raise the rent. And since they know everybody's getting $1,000 a month, they're going to raise it by $1,000. So the people who want to rent the place will have to have a job. They'll have to have a job, like a real job. If you only raise it, let's say you raise it to, you raise it to $1,100. Well, you could still get a person who barely works. You want somebody who has a real job. So, because those people make better tenants. First off, they're not home from 9 to 5. They have a job. Secondly, because they have a 9 to 5 job, they tend to be respectable members of the community. They have an investment in the community. They're working in it, and they're working 40 hours a week. That's like a normal person work week. And that's the kind of person you want in your apartment. You want a normal person. You don't want a drug addict or someone who's spiraling down in their life. So price is a way to keep the people you want in the apartment complex. It has nothing to do with hating poor people. It has everything to do, and if you've had a room to rent in your home, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You have to be very careful. You're letting people live in your home. You've got to pick a good person. There's all sorts of horror stories. You can go online and see them about renters who are they're just absolute nightmares, and getting rid of them is not easy. So that would drive the price of rent up. People would just raise prices because they know people get $1,000 a month, and they would just have money. At that point, everybody has money. So why not raise the prices? It also drives up demand, which also raises prices because now you have more people buying stuff. So even the homeless people can go into ShopRite and buy potato chips. It's going to raise the price of potato chips because they can't keep them on the shelf. And in order to keep them on the shelf, in order to make more money, a retail store raises the price because they can. Why wouldn't you? If the most you can sell in your store is, let's say you have a small store and you sell, I don't know, flea collars. You sell flea collars, and then one day everybody just starts buying pets, and they start buying flea collars like crazy. Well, every day you only stock, I don't know, 500 flea collars, and they all sell out every day. And by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you have to put up a sign that says, "We're sold out, go home." You're doing well, but you also want to be selling all day to make the most money. So you raise the price. You raise the price by $1, and guess what? They all sell out. It takes longer, but they all sell out, and then you make even more money. So you want to find that window. Like if you're selling out your store by 10 a.m., your prices are too low. They're too low. So the market will adjust. And so everybody will be raising their prices, which means that $1,000 won't be enough. And once you've started the process of UBI, now you have all these voters beholden to it. Like, I like my $1,000 a month. If it was $1,200 a month, though, then I'd be able to live. But it's a vicious cycle. As you raise it to $1,200, now the prices go up again. Things go up again. So it's never going to be enough. And you're going to create generations of voters who vote themselves money. I mean, who doesn't want free money, right? Only it's not free. You have to get it from somewhere. And if you can't get it from these other government programs, and believe me, the government programs, the freedom dividend that Andrew Yang alludes to, the guys in the Pentagon, the generals, the CIA, all these guys who make crazy amounts of money and they wield enormous power and they slide into great jobs at the defense industry. Do you think they're just going to give that up without a fight? No. They have political power. They have money. They know people. They're going to fight you on it. And the way they fight you is to do commercials against, certain congressmen. They're going to, come out publicly and make statements. We've already seen this happen quite a bit. My dog is sneezing. We see this happening against Trump. Trump versus, I'm going to say it, the deep state, otherwise known as the intelligence community. The intelligence community, a lot of the Obama appointees anyway, they hate Trump. They hate Trump because he dared suggest that, well, maybe we'll consolidate the CIA, the NSA, and all these groups into one big thing. That would consolidate, that would save us money, but that would lose them money and power. They don't want that. So they hate Trump. So they went so far as to field a candidate for president in Utah, hoping to draw the vote away from Trump and hoping to make him lose Utah. I mean, that's how desperate they are. They've got CIA guys on every major news network now crowing about how Trump is such a danger to the world. Whether you agree with him or not, you got to think about why are all these CIA guys suddenly on TV? They're on TV because they're protecting their interests. The same thing would happen with the Pentagon. If Andrew Yang, by some miracle, got elected president, first off, most of Congress would be against him and none of this would pass. But even if they were, the generals would come out of the woodwork and they would work the crowd much harder because they have much more open influence than ex-CIA guys can. They're not public guys, the CIA guys. You kind of got to be an ex-CIA to be a public guy. But the generals, people in the Army, veterans, oh, they're very public and they're very influential. They are going to make some waves for Andrew, and that's not going to be pleasant. So UBI is never going to happen, thankfully, and if it does, it would be a complete and utter disaster. I got to wrap this up. I told him the parable of, it's an old Roman parable about boars. There was a village in the Roman times beset by boars, and the villagers offered a reward to kill and capture the boars, get rid of them, because they were plaguing the villagers. They would attack them and they couldn't go anywhere. So along came a guy, he said, I'll take care of the boars. He went out in the woods, he found a clearing near the boars, and he put a bunch of food. And he waited, and the first day the boars ignored the food. The second day they came over and sniffed it. The third day, some of the young ones started eating it. And over the course of days, eventually the boars got used to him showing up and putting the food in the same spot. And over time, he made that happen. And every day the boars would come. At first it was only the young ones, but then the older ones would come too. And eventually all the boars in the forest would come to this one spot and eat food. And then the man started to make himself known to the boars. He started to stand in their presence. And slowly but surely they got used to him. And then the man put a post in the ground near the boars. And then they kept eating. And each day he put another post and another post. And then he started putting posts across, like a corral. And every day he'd put more. And eventually the boars just got used to him and used to his noise. And eventually he completed the corral all the way around them. And on the last day, they all went into the corral to eat their food. And he put the gate on it and they were trapped. And that's how he caught the boars. That's exactly what UBI does to people. It traps them. So eventually they're helpless. They're helpless. They're not going to know how to look for a job. They don't look for it. They're not going to know how to survive. They don't have the survival skills anymore. You've been taking care of them. We don't want the state to take care of us. We need to take care of ourselves. And that's a weird statement coming from a guy like me, the laziest man in the world, but there you have it. And that's my rant about UBI.